The 2016 election drew intense public and governmental scrutiny, largely driven by an overarching FBI investigation into potential Russian interference in American politics. As part of that probe, the government directed its focus onto former campaign advisor Carter Page. To monitor him, the FBI utilized the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, a legal mechanism granting the government extraordinary power to conduct covert surveillance on an American citizen. Years later, a Justice Department watchdog reviewed that operation and found serious problems. The investigation revealed the original warrant applications used to authorize the surveillance on Page were inherently flawed, relying heavily on uncorroborated information. Despite being the target of an invasive, multi-year surveillance operation, Carter Page was never charged with a single crime. With clear proof that his civil liberties were violated by federal authorities, Page possessed what appeared to be an ironclad legal case for retaliation. His legal response began with a direct attack against the federal government as a singular institution. This initial track found swift success. The Trump administration's Justice Department agreed to settle the claims, handing Page a definitive institutional victory. Following the settlement, a Justice Department spokesman issued a remarkably blunt statement, admitting the investigation relied on bad information and calling it a political sham from the get-go. This legal win was amplified by public support from Donald Trump, who had repeatedly defended Page while labeling the overarching FBI Russia investigation a hoax. When confronted with the sheer weight of its own watchdog's evidence, the faceless entity of the federal government immediately capitulated and offered a public apology. But Page also filed a second set of claims, shifting his sights away from the broad institution and targeting the specific individuals involved, namely former FBI Director James Comey and 7 other officials. This is where his legal momentum abruptly stalled. Even though the government itself had just admitted the surveillance was unlawful, the lawsuit against the actual architects of that operation immediately hit a wall. This diagram maps the statute of limitations, a strict, inflexible legal deadline for filing a grievance. Starting on the left when the flawed warrants were signed, the timeline moves right until it hits a stark expiration line. As we continue looking at this timeline, you can see where Carter Page actually filed his paperwork, entirely outside the acceptable window. Because he missed that deadline, a federal judge dismissed the case, a ruling later upheld by the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. The American justice system created a stark dichotomy. The undeniable facts of a civil rights violation were completely separated from the liability of the individual actors, all because of a calendar technicality. In a final attempt to bypass the lower courts, Page submitted a desperate petition to the United States Supreme Court, asking them to revive his lawsuit against Comey and the other officials. The Supreme Court rejected the bid without comment, officially cementing Comey's victory and bringing the 2016 saga to a close. Carter Page is now left living in 2 contradictory realities. He holds a government settlement proving he was legally wronged, yet the highest court in the land permanently shielded the specific individuals who authorized the action. Ultimately, possessing undeniable proof of government overreach simply cannot overcome the strict, unforgiving procedural rules of the judicial system. Accountability in federal court hinges on the calendar as much as the evidence. If the procedural clock runs out, a damning watchdog report simply ceases to matter.